Welcome.
Why are they here, Mr. Loki? Why? I'm not ready. The gas is not ready. Send them away. Quick, quick. I'm not ready.
Quick. Greetings. Greetings, Adega.
Hello.
How are you doing, brother?
I'm all right. How are you doing?
I am doing all right. I am ready to get into this tonight. Yes, Bodega in-law. Yeah, not late. Good. Not late. You are not late. You are here on time. We're here to tell scary stories or the back bomb you with factual evidence of evil or mistrust or misdeeds or craziness.
Terrible things. Love it. Love it. Love it. Bring it on.
I love it. Oh man, good evening, Purple Valkyrie, Chris Persia. Good evening, Heiress of Chaos and the Guardian of the Void, Lady Mist. Good evening, Jester of Sin, Dee Dee Myers. Good evening, the Geek Inside, Pat S. I don't know if I already said Pat S. Andrew 46 and 2. Good evening, sir. Good evening, Gun Buddy.
All friends of the insanity.
Yes, Psychodorf 9, Robert Pearson. Good evening, everyone. I hope you all have had a great day and are ready for some spooky, ooky, seriously kooky stuff tonight. Oh, man.
Well, I put it on Discord before I get started, and I'm still celebrating. I mentioned last week that I was contacted, and I'll let you guys know who I was contacted by this week because I said I could, and my publisher said it was fine, is Top Fives. If you want to look up a really cool series of YouTube channels, but Top Fives is the main one. That's who I'm writing for. I already got my first assignment.
Oh, that's nuts. Congratulations.
Yep.
Congratulations. That's insane. Millions of subscribers.
Yes.
That's nuts. Absolutely nuts. I can't wait. You're going to be one of their best.
I don't know. It's sure going to be fun, though.
Oh, I can imagine.
Well, you know what? Tonight, if you don't mind me jumping into the gun, was particularly difficult. We had the morning show, and Loki was, of course, showing off his emotions, and Pat S. had brought up something. And I figured I might as well touch on it. And I only got so far tonight because, I was only working on it today. But the main reason is it was even really hard for me to get into this. Sometimes I can delve into it. Can't write about it, but sometimes I can delve in it. And this was particularly difficult. It literally left me sick to my stomach for a time. But, however, we're going to do it. One of the things that was brought up earlier this morning was the idea that there are powers that be that would seriously curtail the growth of the population, if not eliminate it completely. It was something that we touched on before. And another thing that we touched on before, I'm going to try and tie 2-3 things together with this. This has been going on for some time, and it is a concerted effort. And just as an example, I gave Loki a picture a couple weeks ago, but I found a better one, and he got it today, of what we had lightly discussed before. When it was way back when. Something most of you probably are familiar with. It's called the Georgia Guidestones. Like I said, we do have a picture of it. Waiting for Loki. Wake up. Come on, boy. You can put it up there.
I'm here. Give me just 1 second. For whatever reason, when I saved it, I didn't cut the end of it off, so I'm like trying to.
Don't let me tease you.
I'm working. Give me 1 second. I'm pulling it up right now and share it.
Wikipedia pretty much gives you a good overview of what it is because there's not a lot known. This is made out of granite, and it's close to Atlanta. For those of you who are there, probably have already seen it. That is 19 feet in height, minus the capstone on it. There are various holes in it meant to signify different celestial events, like you could see noon through the hole in the center. It's almost visible there. On the top, there's a couple little holes that you could witness other celestial events. And around the top, on 3 of the sides, is written Egyptian. Let me see if I get this. Sumerian. I think I have it. Let me see. Looking it up. Okay, not cuneiform. Sanskrit is one of them. But around the sides, it has the major languages. It has English, Russian, Swahili, Chinese, Spanish. On each one of those pillars, it has it written in one individual language. Hebrew is on one of them. And to go along with what the thoughts were, I'm going to read each one of those panels on the sides, not on the top, have different sayings. Oh, wait, there, I found what's on the languages on the top. It has Sanskrit, Egyptian hieroglyphic, Babylonian cuneiform, so I was right there, and Greek. Greek was the other one. And what the big panels on the sides, we'll go through this and you could figure out what this means to you, and we'll discuss what it actually means to the people who put this together. We don't know. We know it was a team that was done back in 1980, done by a group who remained anonymous, but the people who actually made the granite per order, who won't talk about it, Elberton Granite Finishing Company. And fortunately or unfortunately, it's kind of funny, because if you look at the Hindi, which is written in there, they didn't get it correct. The lettering doesn't line up. Also on the bottom, the author of the stones, which is a group, but they gave him just a name of the R.C. Christian, and they wrote it's a pseudonym for something else, except they misspelled pseudonym. So these people were overall idiots. But number one on the list of things that I wanted to go over in accordance with what we did this morning, the first item is maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature, meaning that there will be almost 7 billion people removed from the planet if they had their way. Here's another one that goes on. Guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. Now, I don't know about you, but when I hear that, it reminds me of a couple of things in history, which we're going to get into. But remember that, improving fitness and diversity, or in other words, the thoroughbred race. And no, I'm not talking about who you think I am. This is somebody else. Unite humanity with a living new language. When they say living, it usually means alterable, to fit, to adapt, whatever the narrative is, as the powers that be. You hear that nowadays. When you used to hear of the phrase a critical thinker, it used to mean that, and this was all growing up until the recent years, and some of you still believe this, even though that's not how it's used today. It meant that you were able to analyze and calculate and delve into the thoughts that are being presented, or the ideas, or whatever the situation is, where you can really dig into it. Now, critical reasoning means to criticize. That's what they're teaching in college. Nothing can be good. It all has to be criticized. Critical reasoning, or critical thinking theory, critical theory. So when it says, let's go on to the next rule. Rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason, meaning those of you who have passions for whatever activity, movies, recreation, those of you who have various different religions, your traditions will all be ruled by someone who says this is what's reasonable. Protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts. We've heard that before too. The best one is like what Loki was saying, Lady Liberty, or Lady Justice, the one that's has the blindfold on. Equal justice. Okay. 6, let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. Who determines who the world court is? What those laws are? That's, you think of the United Nations, it has failed since its beginning. And you might want to look up Agenda 30. It's in their documents. Avoid petty laws and useless officials. Petty laws and useless officials. Sounds great. But who determines what's a petty law and what's a useless official? Could petty law mean the right to speak in public, the right to assemble? It's just a petty law. You don't need that. Got to be careful when they word things like that. Here's a really bad one. Balance personal rights with social duties. Give up your rights for the betterment of the nation. Okay, number 9, we got 2 left. Prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite. You could hypothesize what they mean by that, but we'll just take it at face value. And the final one, another one that Loki had talked about, and it's right here on the Guidestones. Be not a cancer on the earth. In other words, we got to eliminate humanity. Leave room for nature. And it repeats, leave room for nature. So this has been going on at least till the 80s. I want to bring up someone. Now, we're going to get into a touchy subject here. This, I do not intend anyone to think that I am pushing any political agenda. I am not pushing a side of for or against. I am looking at the bigger picture, meaning something that has to deal with genocide. Okay. So don't think that I'm pro or against. I've never told anybody in our group where my stand is. What I am against, though, when it comes to what we're going to get into, is against this tool being used to eliminate specific races. Let's see. What did I have next? Do you want to show the picture of the lady? If you can get that. Some of you will recognize who this person is right away. Started off her public stuff back in the 1918s, carried on. I have a little video here in a minute. We'll start listening to it because you can even hear her voice. She's a pioneer in many regards. Some people say that she is the women's right activist of our age. A feminist, a lot of them like to claim. But what a lot of them don't tell you is what her real agenda was. The phrase eugenics and the eugenics society, the eliminating of people that they deemed were not worthy to exist. If you had a small flaw, if you had a physical disability, if you had a mental disability, that even could mean depression. You were eliminated because you would not be part of the thoroughbreds. This lady is an American, and her ideas were popular in certain groups, and they spread across the ocean to someone who eliminated millions of Jews. There is the brainchild of the exterminations from its founding. Reason being, not only was she a fascist, but she was also a racist. She hated everybody that wasn't her specific ideal of what humans should be. Don't believe me? Let's get into her words. You got that little video? We'll take them a little bit at a time. They're all tied together, but you'll see a break in between each. It takes him a minute. He's kind of bound up there.
I'm working on it. Give me 1 second.
It's okay. He also hasn't eaten. He's probably turning his mic off to munch on something.
Okay.
I think the greatest sin in the
All right.
This is it. Here we go.
I think the greatest sin in the world is bringing children into the world that have disease from their parents, that have no chance in the world to be a human being, practically. Delinquents, prisoners, all sorts of things just marked when they're born.
Okay, go ahead and pause that.
Improving the genetic
You notice where she said to be a human being, then she had to correct herself. Those of you who know body language, speech language, and that type of stuff, she knew she let slip out that she thought only the people that she approved of were humans. The rest were less than. Go ahead. These are some quotes from her
improving the
writings.
genetic composition of humans through controlled reproduction of different races and classes.
I personally believe in the sterilization of the feeble-minded, the insane, and the syphilitic. The most urgent problem today is how to limit and discourage the over-fertility of the mentally and physically defective. It means the release and cultivation of the better racial elements in our society and the gradual suppression, elimination, and eventual extirpation of defective stocks, those human weeds which threaten the blooming of the finest flowers of American civilization.
I think that was the last one. So that last quote came out of the New York Times. A lot of people say, oh, she never called people weeds. Yeah, she did. That's a direct quote from her. And she believed that the gardening needed to be done and the genetics needed to be pruned and only certain people should exist, like the 500 million who would mostly be a slave race to these elitists. And as you guys, you can infer what I've implied about the nation that existed 80 years ago that was actively trying to do this. And we have one now that is actively trying to eliminate the Uyghurs. These things are real. And like I had said at the beginning of this, I got into it was all the facts. It had the images and different things. And not only did it break my heart, but it made me sick about some of the things that was coming up. And I can't share them with you just because it's too hard for me even to think that I went into it today, of some of the terrible things that has been done and is going on today. And like I said, it has nothing to do with abortion. It has to do with elimination of people. Now, here is going to be a controversial thing, and I don't mind stepping in controversy. I step by a position of somewhat of authority, having a degree, being a doctor, somewhat. But that doesn't mean that I'm any better than anyone. It just means that I've studied these things for a lifetime. When it comes to certain, because vaccines can be done correctly. And as we see with the ones that are coming out, some are done correctly and a lot of them aren't so good. And people are getting very sick. And you're seeing the videos of the people passing out in cars and different things that are coming out from certain vaccines that are out nowadays. There was a certain man you all know by the name of Bill Gates who was kicked out of Africa because the stuff he was bringing into them was sterilizing and harming the population. There are those who continue to carry the torch even after 100 years of trying to decrease the surplus population. I think you guys know that phrase. And without jeopardizing Loki's channel and without jeopardizing my ability to sleep at night, I'm going to have to leave it there. You guys can do investigation on your own. Like I said, it has nothing to do with abortion. It has everything to do with them using any means, any excuse, any way to try and convince you that you do not belong on this planet and that only select few do. And that your opinions mean nothing, but theirs does. and it's very real, and it's been going on for a long time. And the Communist Party has to answer for over 160 million people dead, whether it be from, well, you combine them, Russia, China, Pol Pot. Whether you like to believe it or not, some of you don't, but the bad Germans was a nationalistic, socialistic party. It's the same idea, only they thought their nation should be supreme over the others instead of where a communist would be. As long as you believe in us, we're going to still go by the same rules. So just some of the dark things of the world that was brought up this morning that I wanted to clarify a little bit more. And like I said, I'm still kind of sick to my stomach, some of the stuff I got into today. But there you have it.
To add just a little bit of what Adega said before I move on. I know when I was a teenager, there were a lot of kids that didn't make it out of teenagehood. They didn't make it out of being a teen. Some of them died. Some of them did some really messed up things to themselves, all because they did not see a future for themselves. And you don't know at that age what is going to be in store for you, what you have to look forward to. You can't, because you're a teenager. You have no idea that one day you might fall in love and get married and have children and live a productive, happy life, or have an effect on society, or go forward and change something fundamental about our civilization that nobody had ever done before. You have no idea what your future has in store for you. And if you yourself don't, then sure as shit, someone else that is deciding who is going to survive and who is not, they do not know. They have absolutely no idea.
Now, here's the thing, too. When you get with Sanger's ideas, guess who would not have been here? We would not have had Einstein. We would not have had Stephen Hawking.
Yeah.
Some of the most brilliant minds of the past century that have advanced physics. They wouldn't have been here simply because of their disability and who they were born to.
Yeah. So it's something that you don't think about as a kid, and something that I'm sure shit, I know someone else isn't going to think about when they're deciding who gets to live and who gets to die. So, on to our story for tonight. Thank you, Adega. Thank you, brother. This story is called The Living History Project and was written by Christine O'Neill and based on a concept by Nicholas Giampetro. Hopefully I said that correctly. One of my least favorite parts about being a middle school history teacher is the bullshit living history assignments we give at the end of every school year. Kids are supposed to sit with their grandparents and videotape, voice record, or transcribe their oldest memories for posterity and for an easy way to bring up their GPA. It's bullshit. I've been doing this for over 17 years, and when I collected the projects this time around, I assumed they would be as dull, if not duller, than every single other year. This had not been a particularly bright class. So I went home, poured myself a glass of scotch, and prepared for a long night of I only owned 2 pairs of pants when I was your age, and my brother got beat with a newspaper prohibiting baseball into the neighbor's yard, and of course, these projects were peppered with innocent old person comments that were so horribly sexist, you just had to laugh. Now, I had a girl in my class whom I will call Olivia. She was a little pudgy, a little quiet, and proved herself a consistent B student. I expected her project to be as unremarkable as her. And perhaps that's why I was so profoundly disturbed by what I witnessed that night. Olivia had submitted 2 discs for some reason, so I began with the one marked interview. My screen hiccuped twice before a grainy image of a living room came into view. The place was a hoarder's hell. Olivia was curled up in an armchair, clutching a notebook and looking like a scared little animal. Across from her sat a man with a somber countenance, smoking a cigarette and staring at her expectantly. "Go ahead," a woman's voice whispered from behind the camera. Olivia's owlish eyes flashed toward the screen and then back to the man. "I am here with my great-uncle Stephen," she began, almost inaudibly. "He is going to tell us about his oldest memories from being in the army." Great-uncle Stephen looked like he'd rather be in a goddamn trench at the moment, but he waited patiently for the questions to begin. Not surprisingly, Olivia read verbatim from the suggested question sheet I had handed out to the students. He answered her curtly. Once or twice, I heard her mother whisper, "Speak up, Olivia," from behind the camera. Typically boring shit. So I was intrigued when Olivia sat down with a notebook and asked, "Did you like being in the army?" That was totally off script. Great Uncle Stephen emitted a chain smoker's wheeze. "Nope. Glad to get out of my town, though." "Where did you go?" "Balkans." "Uh-huh," she said. I doubted she knew what the Balkans were, and my suspicion was confirmed when she added, "Was Balkans very different from here?" "Yeah." Mom cleared her throat from behind the camera, perhaps encouraging Great Uncle Stephen to be a little more forthcoming. But Olivia seemed genuinely interested. "Uncle Stephen," she asked, "what is your very worst memory from the army?" The old man crushed his cigarette in the ashtray and then slowly lifted himself out of his chair. "I'll be back," he mumbled. The camera cut off. When the screen flashed back on, everything was the same, except Great Uncle Stephen had several pieces of paper in plastic sleeves laid atop all the crap sitting on his coffee table. One he held in his hand. "I was a kid when I enlisted," he said, looking at Olivia. "Your brother's age," he told her. Olivia nodded. "I never saw combat. Both of my deployments were to cities in Eastern Europe that had been destroyed by civil wars. Everything was a mess. I felt like a janitor, for fuck's sake." Mom coughed. Great Uncle Stephen sighed and looked at his paper. "My unit was assigned to a school that had been obliterated by all the violence. Broken windows, caved-in rooms, and for some reason, the part that got to me the most was that the school had been like this for years before we ever even got there. No one had lifted a finger to fix it. I saw kids walk by it on their way to go beg for money or whatever shit they did." The camera dipped towards the floor as I heard Mom whisper harshly at Great Uncle Stephen. I couldn't make out what she was saying, but it wasn't hard to imagine. "Do you want to hear this goddamn story or not?" I heard him bark in response. "Then you better let me tell it how I wants to tell it." "Mom," Olivia chimed in, "please stop interrupting." "Are you presenting this in front of the class?" "No, Mom, we're just handing it to the teacher." I'm sure he's heard worse than the word shit before. Oh, hold on. "I'm sure he's heard worse than the word shit before," Great Uncle Stephen continued, hopefully. I wasn't a he, as a matter of fact, but other than that, the sentiment was accurate. The camera was lifted, and after a couple of blurry focus adjustments, the shot was the same as before. "I'm taking too much anyway," he grumbled. He lifted the piece of paper in his hand close to his face. "In the basement, I found this letter. Didn't know what it said, but I had a buddy of mine translate it, so I'm going to read it to you now, and then I'll tell you what I saw in them there basement." A chill ran down my spine. Mom zoomed in to greet Uncle Stephen and his letter. His palsied hands trembled as he held up the paper. This is what he read. "Dear Sir, I never loved my country. So many of these skirmishes are born from patriotism, power struggle for the shards of a once great empire. But I do not care what name my home has on a map. This fighting is senseless, and I stay as far away from it as I can. It was not these attacks and disorganized violence that took the lives of my wife and child. It was illness, mercifully. It happened quickly before the baby. Naja suffered for longer. I watched in horror, knowing I could do nothing for them. My only solace is that I was there for them every step of the way. I stopped going to work one day, and no one came after me. I doubt they even noticed I was gone. Since the school was simply across the field, visibly from my window, it would have been easy to go for a few hours each day, come home quickly to care for them. But what was the point? All I did was clean the floors. I was as useless to the world as I was to my family. I tried to take Naja to the hospital, but the journey was too long, too taxing. I brought her home, and she died that very night. After Naja and the baby were gone, well, I don't remember much. I didn't leave my hovel, barely ate, barely slept, thought many times of taking my own. Tempting though it was, I felt paralyzed by my own helplessness. The one thing that kept me sane was my radio. I never turned it off, not once. Even though I didn't listen to the words being said, in fact, the channel I got the clearest was in English, I think, which I didn't speak a lick of. But the voices, the music, and the true knowledge that life existed beyond this violent city, well, it sustained me. I have no idea how much time passed before I saw the light of day again. I was dizzy from hunger, so finding food was my priority. My radio came with me, of course. Since I first holed up myself, it has ever gone everywhere with me. It talks to me as I sleep and as I wake. I don't know what it's saying, but I know I would die without it. Once I had some water and food, it occurred to me that the only thing left to do was to go back to work. So I did. The following morning, I simply returned to the school where I was a janitor and got back to work. Nobody made a big deal out of it. Like I said, Naja had been sick for a long time, and those who worked at the school knew it. I appreciate that no one had pestered me to come back to work during the hardest days of my life. The teachers never said much to me, but we smiled at each other in the halls, and that mutual respect was perhaps the reason I decided to come back. The place had gone to the dogs without me, so I simply grabbed my broom and rags from my closet and set to cleaning. Everyone is grateful to have me back, I know, and the best part is that nobody minds my radio. I bring it with me everywhere and keep the volume low enough not to disturb the students. No one has ever complained. In fact, I suspect they liked it. The schoolhouse is not very big, but does require a lot of maintenance. Floors are always sticky and stained, so I spend most of my time mopping. Kids make messes. Guess that's why I'm still in business. Sometimes I have to move things around to make sure I get every spot on the floor beautiful and clean, but I take pride in my work. And the repairs. School always needs tune-ups here and there, and I'm happy to help. Some days I'm reconstructing a desk that broke as I whistle along with the radio. Other times I handle more serious structural issues. Days when I have work like this, I feel truly instrumental, like a cog in a much larger machine. How could this school survive without me? Took me a long time, but once again, I feel that I have a purpose. There is a larder behind the school that is full of preserved food. In lieu of payment, I'm allowed to take as much food as I need. That arrangement is fine. What would I do with money anyway? I used to bring the food back to my home, just one field away from the school. But when I started sleeping in the basement, no one seemed to notice. This school is special to me, and I cannot, will not, leave it unguarded. When I'm besieged with memories of my wife and baby, I turn up the volume on my radio to drown out those thoughts. It works for me every time, except this morning. Because this morning, I woke up to dead silence. I frantically examined the radio to see what had happened. I honestly cannot tell you how many days in a row I have been using it. Did it simply live out its life and die? I've spent the entire day trying to fix it. Most of this time I've been crying. I'm losing my mind without it. I have given myself until sundown. If I cannot fix it by then, I'm going to take my life. I'm writing this because the sunlight is starting to die, and I know what my fate shall be. I've thought about taking one last walk through the halls of my school, saying goodbye to the students and teachers. I know I will be missed, but I cannot bring myself to leave this room. I cannot go anywhere knowing that my radio is dead in here. There are no more tears in me. It feels like now I can't catch my breath. I vomited what little food I had in my stomach, and I am drowning dizzy again, like I did after Naja died. I am not long for this world. But before I take my life, I have closed the door to this room and stuck a chair beneath the handle. It is the only room in the basement and has a small casement that lets in just enough light for me to see what I'm doing. If anyone is kind enough to come looking for me, they should not be met with this gruesome sight. Perhaps they will see the door is blocked, smell my rotting body, and simply forget I ever existed. But I've placed both my radio and this note outside the door. Kind sir, if you are reading this, I have one humble request. Please fix it. Save my radio. It did not deserve to die in its sleep, and I am ashamed that I cannot revive it. Now I'm ready to join Naja and little Ludmilla in heaven. I hope this school can find another janitor who loves and cares for it the way I do. The hour is now. Do not forget my radio. Stanislav. I am sorry I broke character and the accent slipped, but I have not read this, and that felt very disrespectful reading it that way. When Mom zoomed back out, Olivia had tears in her eyes. Thank you for sharing, Uncle Stephen, Mom said, her voice choked. I think we have enough. Wait, Olivia chirped. He said there's more. What did you find? Before great Uncle Stephen could open his mouth, the image disappeared. My jaw dropped. Was that it? What did great Uncle Stephen see? I promptly remembered that there was a second disc. This one was unmarked, but I hoped it contained the rest of the interview. There was no video, only audio. The voice that started up was Olivia's. Hi, Miss Garrity. I'm sorry about my mom, but she refused to record the rest of what my uncle was saying. But I asked him to continue and secretly recorded the story as a voice memo on my phone. I remember you said earlier this year that history is written by the people who win wars. She sucked in a breath and commenced crying, but everyone's history is important, even if they are sad, pathetic people, and even if they never won a single thing in their life. I haven't slept through the night since I finished this project. But you have to hear what my uncle has to say. There were tears in my eyes, too. The sincerity of her words were beautiful. I was also flattered that she had remembered some trite phrase I threw around because it was what my history teacher said to me. Before I got too sappy over it, the audio began playing. Fine, came Mom's frustrated voice. If you want to hear the rest of the story, fine. But this is not appropriate for a school project. Let me finish, great Uncle Stephen snapped. If it's too much for you, help yourself to a snack in the kitchen. But Olivia wants to know what happened. I heard her mother mumble something and walk away. Olivia and her uncle were alone. I imagined her looking at him expectantly. So did you find the radio, or did it get ruined when the school got blown up? He rasped, and I heard the distinct click of a lighter. That letter, he began slowly, had a date on it. What date? She inquired hungrily. It was dated 2 weeks before we started rebuilding the school. Didn't you say the school had been destroyed like 2 years ago? Yes, it had been. There was silence as I felt goosebumps on my arm. The image that came to my mind were almost too overwhelming to express, but great Uncle Stephen put them in the words effortlessly. Clearly, he had spent his whole life thinking about this. This man, this Stanislav, went to a vandalized, fallen apart schoolhouse and cleaned up blood and rubble like it was spilled drinks and dust. He smiled at dead bodies in the hallway and believed they were smiling back at him because they liked his radio. He moved around corpses so he could sweep the ground under them. The roof was half collapsed, so when it rained, he must have gotten soaking wet. It was so obvious that he didn't even feel a thing. I could hear Olivia crying steadily. I found the larder he was talking about. It was all pickled, preserved food that probably tasted like shit. Most of the stuff was moldy. Did you see the dead body? Yeah, we saw it, hanging from the ceiling. But still amazingly lifelike. He wasn't rotted away or nothing. This hadn't happened years ago. Did he look peaceful? She asked, a chord of desperation in her voice. Couldn't tell you. Smell was rank. His face was blue, and his eyes, they were bulging. Like this, I imagined him demonstrating. And the radio? Olivia wept. I heard Great Uncle Stephen take a long drag off his cigarette. It was there, all right. And it was still on. And that's it.
That one was hard.
Yeah. When I apologized for losing, to me, I did not in any way, shape, or form want to be disrespectful.
No, because that could almost be a true story.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it was. Guys, I don't read these. I keep saying that. A couple of people have tried to call bullshit. Adega knows. I don't read them. I literally found that 7 or 8 minutes before we went live. I read the very first part of it. That's it. That's all I ever do. Because I want to be entertained the way y'all are entertained. Believe it or not, this is like one of my best favorite parts of the week is doing this with Adega. I love getting to do this. It is really cool for me to get to do this. I love getting to read it out loud. So, because I'm going with you guys. If you some of you I know will close your eyes and picture what's happening when you're reading, or picture what's happening when you listen to somebody. I do the same thing. And I do that when I'm reading too. So, Speaker for the Dead, I can't believe that's where it ended. It was still on. The radio was there and it was on.
You have to understand, Speaker, he doesn't like abrupt endings. He likes it all tidied up and put in a bow. He gave me grief at the end of the Blood Witch, too. So.
Oh, man. Open my eyes and just listen. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm with you. It wouldn't surprise me if that was something that someone put down from a true story.
Yeah.
You never know what's going to happen to someone when they're faced in war, when they lose their family and everything else. Just name is only
D.D. Myers says, Loki and Adega, thanks for the show tonight. Another great show with the history books. You make the perfect partners in crime, so to speak. Hats off to you both. Thank you, D.D.
Loki makes it easy.
Thank you, D.D.
Yeah, thanks. Oh, I'm going to be sad tonight.
Yeah, I know. That wasn't scary at all. It was sad. Okay. So yeah, that's a beautiful story though. Beautiful story. I had to break. I had to break. I couldn't keep doing
No one blames you, and no one is pointing the finger at you. It's better than any of us could have done.
I just couldn't keep doing that because All right, guys, we will be back next week. We are going to have a special guest. So
Yes.
we're gonna do an interview. Some of you may remember the stories, the psychopath stories written by R.M. Staniforth. We are going to interview this writer next week. Purple, thanks to Purple Valkyrie was able to get a hold of this person, and we are going to interview them next week. I can't wait. I absolutely can't wait. This is the journey of a psychopath university, journey of a psychopath high school. We read multiple stories that this person has written. My DNA genealogy test shattered everything I thought I knew about my life.
Yep.
And the journey of a psychopath. How much does fame and fortune cost? I found the answer. We read that one too.
Yep.
So we are going to the very special show next week. We're going to talk to R.M. Staniforth, and we were discussing this. I do not know if this is a man or if this is a woman. I have no idea. Anonymity with the RM, we don't know. Absolutely do not know. So it will be a surprise to you, and it will be a surprise to us as well. Tomorrow morning, we are going to do a best of Star Wars. We're going to talk best of Star Wars. I don't think we're going to get anything Disney has done.
Yeah, I can end it off with the whole hour show just Revan. We're done.
Revan, yeah.
We're done. That's it.
Exactly, Revan. Revan, my favorite Star Wars character, whether he's a Sith or a Jedi. Revan.
Yep. Sorry.
Absolutely. No.
Bane's apprentice, I always forget her name. She would be a close second for me.
Yes, the Twi'lek?
Yeah. She's the one who she's like 10 and she killed the people on the shuttle getting back to Bane.
Yes.
Yeah, proving that she's worthy of an apprentice. Yes. The Sith wizard or sorceress. She was awesome.
She was awesome. Absolutely. So, guys, take care. Have a wonderful night. Thank you so very much for being here. Hold on one second. Do I still have that up? Can I pull that up? Yes, I can. Psychodorp 9 sent in a $10 super chat. I always have a problem with who is doing the decisions on who gets to stick around. No man is so perfect as to be without flaw. No man is so mean as to be without use. Absolutely. I'm glad I didn't miss that. Thank you so very much, Psychodorp 9. You are absolutely positively correct.
Absolutely. Yep.
And we will leave you guys with this. Thank you. Everyone have a great night.
Good night, all.
Long live the fighters!
These videos are tremendous. Like, comment, and subscribe, and hammer that notification bell.